Hello, I'm Dr. Jim Taylor, and welcome to Prime Sport Alert. This segment of Prime Sport Alert focuses on the power of emotions. Emotions lie at the top of the Prime Sport pyramid. It's at the top because emotions will ultimately dictate how you perform throughout a competition. Emotions during a competition can cover the spectrum from excitement and elation to frustration, anger, and disappointment. Emotions are often strong and, most troublesome, they can linger and hurt your performances long after you first experience them. Negative emotions can hurt performance both physically and mentally. They first cause you to lose your prime intensity. With frustration and anger, your intensity goes up and leads to muscle tension, breathing difficulties, and a loss of coordination. It also saps your energy and causes you to tire more quickly. When you experience despair and helplessness, your intensity drops sharply and you no longer have the physiological capabilities to perform your best. Negative emotions can also hurt you mentally. Your emotions are telling you that deep down you're not confident in your ability to perform well and achieve your competitive goals. Your confidence then will decline and you'll have a lot of negative thoughts to go along with your negative emotions. Also, since your negative emotions are so strong, you'll likely have difficulty focusing on what will help you to perform well. The negative emotions draw your attention onto all the negative aspects of your performance. Finally, negative emotions hurt your motivation to perform because you just don't feel good and you're not having a very good time out there. Emotions come from past experiences in similar athletic situations in the form of beliefs and attitudes you hold about performing and competing. The emotions associated with these beliefs and attitudes are commonly known as the baggage you carry from your past. Your perceptions from the past impact your present, even though the emotions may not be appropriate or at all helpful in the present situation. One of the most difficult aspects of emotions is that they can become habits that can cause you to automatically respond with a certain emotional reaction in a particular circumstance, even when that emotional response does more harm than good. For example, when you see professional athletes on TV totally lose it and get ejected from a game, you're likely seeing their emotional baggage that is both self-destructive to themselves and their team. Negative emotions can be provoked by many occurrences during a competition and in practice, including bad calls, senseless mistakes, making an error at a crucial point in a competition, or just plain performing poorly. All these events share two common elements that lie at the heart of what causes negative emotions. First, you feel that the path toward your goal is being blocked. Second, you don't seem to be able to have control over removing that obstacle. For example, a tennis player is losing to an opponent that he believes he should beat, and no matter what he tries, he can't seem to turn the match around. The tennis player is likely to experience frustration and anger initially. These emotions can be helpful at first because they motivate him to fight to clear the path toward his goal and regain control of the match. But if he's unable to change the course of the match, he will then experience despair and helplessness, in which he accepts that he can't win. So what does he do? Well, he gives up. In my work with high-level athletes, I've seen extremely negative emotional reactions to the smallest failures. A missed shot, a few errors in practice, or falling behind early in a competition produce frustration and anger that seem to be so out of proportion to the magnitude of the failure. For example, a young gymnast I worked with would beat herself up emotionally for making the smallest mistake in practice. Her level of performance would, not unexpectedly, steadily decline, and she would feel terrible about her gymnastics and herself. By the end of the day, she would be battered and bruised by her own emotions. Clearly, the punishment did not fit the crime for her. Be sure that your emotions are proportional to what causes them. Ask yourself whether a few mistakes are worth the ill feelings you might experience. Are you being fair to yourself? When the severity of the punishment exceeds the seriousness of the crime, you have probably lost perspective on how important your sport is in your life. It might be worth getting really upset if you didn't get into the college of your choice, or you had a really bad loss in a very important competition. But are these strong negative emotions worth feeling over some unimportant mistakes? You should also consider whether these emotions help or hurt your sports performances. Admittedly, negative emotions can raise your performances at first because they increase your intensity and get you to fight harder. But after a short time, your performances will likely decline, and it usually spirals downward into a vicious cycle from there. Negative emotions usually hurt your performances and keep you from reaching your goals. Why would you allow yourself to experience emotions such as frustration, anger, and despair and act in ways, by, for example, throwing a tantrum, choking, or giving up, that actually ensures failure rather than helps you achieve success. It's okay to be disappointed when you make mistakes or perform poorly. In fact, you should feel that way. It means you care about your sport and want to do better. But when your negative emotions are strong and self-defeating, particularly for how minor the crime is, let's be realistic, you will make a lot of mistakes and have your share of failures during your sports career. Then you need to look at why your punishment far exceeds the crime you committed. Consider the best athletes in the world. Sports are obviously very important to them because it's their life and livelihood. Yet how upset do they get when they perform poorly and lose? Well, admittedly, some do get extremely upset. But overall, considering how important sports are to them, most great athletes handle mistakes and losing pretty darn well. In fact, one of the reasons why the best athletes in the world are at the top is because they have the ability to control their emotions rather than their emotions controlling them. In recent years, I've found a simple distinction that appears to lie at the heart of the emotional reactions that athletes have to their sport. Do they experience emotional threat or emotional challenge? At the heart of emotional threat is the perception that winning is all important and failure is absolutely unacceptable. Emotional threat is most often associated with too great an emphasis on winning, results, and rankings. Pressure to win from parents, coaches, and the athletes themselves is also common. With these beliefs, it's easy to see why competing in a sport would be emotionally threatening. Emotional threat manifests itself in a negative emotional chain, in which each psychological link, separately and cumulatively, causes you to feel badly and hurts your performances. The most common reaction to a threat is the desire to avoid the threat. There is often a loss of motivation to perform and compete, especially when the threat of losing is immediate. For example, when you're behind in a competition. Think of giving up as a major loss of motivation. Emotional threat also suggests to you that you're incapable of overcoming the situation that's causing the threat. So your confidence is hurt and you're overwhelmed with negative and defeatist thoughts. The threat produces strong negative emotions such as fear, anger, frustration, and despair. The emotional threat also causes tremendous anxiety and all sorts of negative physical symptoms. The previous links in the negative emotional chain make it nearly impossible to focus effectively because there are so many negative things pulling your focus away from a useful focus. All of the previous links in the chain ultimately result in very poor performance and you're not having a whole lot of fun out there. In contrast, emotional challenge is associated with you enjoying the process of your sport regardless of whether you achieve your goals. The emphasis is on having fun and seeing the competition as exciting and enriching. Sports, when seen as an emotional challenge, are an experience that is relished and sought out at every opportunity. Thus, emotional challenge is highly motivating to the point where you love being in pressure situations. Emotional challenge communicates to you that you have the ability to meet the demands of your sport, so you're confident and filled with positive emotions. Emotional challenge generates many positive emotions, such as excitement, joy, and satisfaction. It also stimulates your body to achieve prime intensity, where your body's relaxed but motivated, and you're physically capable of performing your best. You also have the ability to attain prime focus, in which you're totally focused on what enables you to perform your best. To conclude, all of the links in the emotional challenge chain lead you to experience prime sport, feel great enjoyment in your sport, and very likely, achievement of your athletic goals. I'm Dr. Jim Taylor for Prime Sport Alert.